The studio of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert buzzed with anticipation as Scott Eastwood stepped onto the stage to thunderous applause. The audience, gathered in expectation of another charismatic interview, had no idea they were about to witness a historic moment that would shake Hollywood. Stephen Colbert, with his signature smile and a glint in his eye, seemed in command of the situation, but beneath his confidence lurked a cold calculation. This night was supposed to be a routine promotion for a critically acclaimed drama, but instead, it turned into an epic battle of principles, where one man stood up for his dignity and another lost everything he had built over years. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to catch the latest stories. The interview began lightly. Stephen leaned forward, his glasses glinting under the lights. "So, Scott, Redemption Road. Everyone's talking about this film? Tell us about it." Scott's eyes lit up. "It's a story about second chances, Stephen. My character, Jack Sullivan, is a man haunted by his actions during the war. It's about finding peace, not just with the world, but with yourself. It's deeply personal for me. My grandfather served, and I wanted to honor that generation's sacrifices." The audience murmured approvingly, and Stephen nodded, his smile widening. "That's beautiful, Scott, truly. But let's lighten things up a bit. What's your take on the latest Hollywood scandals? You know, the drama with Kylie Jenner's fashion line, Kai? Copying designs from Australian designer Jessica Johansson Bell? Or Alyssa Milano's crowdfunding for her son's baseball team, despite her own wealth? Thoughts?" The question hit like a sharp jab, unexpected and pointed. Scott's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained composure, his voice steady. "Look, I don't really follow the gossip mill. People make mistakes, and I think it's more productive to focus on creating something meaningful than tearing others down." Stephen chuckled, but there was an edge to his laugh, a glint in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Oh, come on, Scott. You're too noble for your own good. You've got to have some opinion on this cancel culture we're all swimming in. You're a straight shooter. No offense, of course." The audience laughed, but the room felt tighter, the air heavier. Backstage, Sarah's fingers froze on her phone. She exchanged a glance with one of the producers, a wiry man named Greg, who was already whispering into his headset, his brow furrowed. The pre-interview agreement had been clear. Stick to the film, avoid personal or controversial topics. Scott had clearly outlined his boundaries, and Stephen, smiling, had agreed. But now, those boundaries were being tested. Scott shifted in his chair, his gaze steady but his jaw tightening. "I think the world's quick to judge sometimes," he said carefully. "But I'd rather talk about the work, about stories that bring us together, not divide us." Stephen leaned back, his fingers steepled, his smile now more feline than friendly. Sure. But let's be honest, Scott. You're a guy with strong values, right? Faith, family, all that stuff. How do you square that with, let's call it Hollywood's flexible morality? Your industry's a mess. Cancel culture, Me Too, political witch hunts. Don't you ever feel like you're swimming in a swamp?" The audience gasped, a quiet wave of shock rippling through the crowd. A few nervous laughs broke the silence, but most eyes were fixed on Scott, waiting for his response. Backstage, Sarah paled, and Greg's whispers into his headset grew frantic. "He's going off script," Greg hissed to another producer. "Get Stephen to pivot now." Scott's eyes narrowed, but his voice remained calm, measured. "Stephen, I don't think it's fair to paint an entire industry with that brush. There are good people in Hollywood, people who care about art, about truth. I focus on them, not the noise." Stephen's smile didn't fade, but his tone grew sharper, almost mocking. "Truth, huh? That's rich, coming from a guy whose father's a legend for playing tough guys with questionable ethics. Tell me, Scott, do you ever feel like you're living in Clint's shadow? Or is that chip on your shoulder just part of the Eastwood brand?" The audience froze, the weight of the question hanging like a guillotine. Scott's face hardened, his blue eyes burning with a quiet intensity. The mention of his father, Clint Eastwood, was a low blow, one that violated every unspoken rule of professional courtesy. Stephen had crossed a line, and he knew it. Sarah, backstage, was now seething, her gaze boring into the stage manager. He knew not to go there, she whispered. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the storm brewing on stage. Scott leaned forward, his voice low but firm, each word deliberate. My father's legacy is his own. I'm here to talk about my work, Stephen. If you want to dig into personal territory, at least have the courage to ask a real question, not throw cheap shots. The audience erupted in applause, a wave of support that seemed to catch Stephen off guard. His smile wavered, but only for a moment. He leaned closer, his eyes glinting with something dangerous. Perhaps pride or the thrill of a fight. Okay, let's get real then. You're all about authenticity, right? So why dodge the tough stuff? Let's talk about your faith. You're a devout Christian in a town that's allergic to anything traditional. Ever feel like Hollywood's laughing at you behind your back? The question was a dagger, sharp and personal, designed to provoke. The audience shifted uncomfortably, some murmuring in disapproval, others leaning forward, hungry for drama. Scott's hands clenched briefly, but he didn't flinch. My faith is my compass, he said, his voice steady but laced with steel. It's not up for debate and it's not a punchline. If you've got a problem with that, Stephen, that's on you. Stephen's laugh was brittle now, his composure cracking. Oh, come on, Scott. Don't get all high and mighty. This is a talk show, not a sermon. The audience wants the real you, not some polished PR version. So, level with us. Ever worry you're too old school for this town? Too rigid to keep up? The audience booed softly, the tide turning against Stephen's relentless prodding. Backstage, Greg was practically shouting into his headset, "Cut to commercial, now!" But the director shook his head, transfixed by the unfolding drama. Sarah's hands were shaking as she typed out a message to Scott's team, knowing this moment was about to go viral. Scott stood, his 6 feet 4 inches frame towering over the desk, his presence commanding the room. The audience fell silent, every eye on him. You know what, Stephen? I came here to talk about a film that means something to me. A film about redemption, about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. But you're not interested in that. You're chasing clicks, headlines, whatever gets you attention. And that's fine, until you cross a line. You've disrespected me, my family, my beliefs, and frankly, this audience. The crowd roared, a tidal wave of cheers and applause that shook the studio. Stephen's face flushed, his smirk gone, replaced by a flicker of panic. Now hang on, he started, but Scott cut him off, his voice rising not in anger, but in conviction. I'm done with this, Scott said, his words ringing with finality. You want to play games? Find someone else. I'm here to tell stories that matter, not to be your punching bag. Respect isn't negotiable, Stephen. Not for me, not for anyone. With that, Scott unclipped his microphone, dropped it on the desk with a deliberate thud, and walked off the stage. The audience exploded, some standing, others shouting in support. Stephen sat frozen, his hands gripping the desk, his eyes wide with the realization that he'd miscalculated, badly. As Scott disappeared behind the curtains, the studio descended into chaos. Sarah rushed to his side, her voice a mix of awe and panic. That was incredible. But we need to get ahead of this, Scott. Social media's already blowing up. Sure enough, her phone was flooded with notifications. Scott, Eastwood walks out, and Colbert crossed the line were trending within minutes. On stage, Stephen tried to salvage the moment, forcing a laugh as the cameras rolled. Well, folks, that's live TV for you. Let's take a quick break. But the audience wasn't buying it. Boos echoed as the show cut to commercial, and backstage, the producers were in full damage control mode. Greg was on the phone with network executives, his voice strained. This is a PR nightmare, he muttered. Stephen went too far. The internet erupted. Clips of the confrontation spread like wildfire across X, TikTok, and YouTube, with users praising Scott's dignity and slamming Stephen's behavior. Scott Eastwood just showed what real class looks like, one X post read, racking up millions of likes. Celebrities chimed in. Dwayne Johnson tweeted, "Respect to Scott Eastwood for standing his ground. That's a man of principle." Even Alyssa Milano, no stranger to controversy herself, posted, "This is why we need more people like Scott in this industry." By the next morning, the fallout was undeniable. The Late Show's ratings plummeted as sponsors like AT&T and Coca-Cola issued statements distancing themselves from the controversy. A petition circulated online demanding an apology from Stephen, while rumors swirled of an internal CBS investigation into his conduct. Stephen issued a half-hearted apology on air the following night, claiming he'd misread the room, but the damage was done. His reputation as a charming everyman was tarnished, replaced by whispers of arrogance and unprofessionalism. Meanwhile, Scott emerged as a folk hero. Ticket sales for Redemption Road surged, with audiences drawn to the film's message and Scott's real-life embodiment of its themes. At a press junket the following week, he addressed the incident with characteristic grace. "I don't hold grudges," he said, "but I won't compromise on respect. That's not just for me. It's for everyone watching, everyone who believes in doing the right thing." The confrontation sparked a broader conversation about the state of entertainment media. Op-eds flooded major outlets, dissecting the power dynamics between hosts and guests, the ethics of provocation, and the role of cancel culture in holding public figures accountable. On X, users debated whether Stephen's behavior reflected a deeper rot in late-night television, where ratings often trumped integrity. "It's not just about Colbert," one viral post read. "It's about a system that rewards cheap shots over real dialogue." For Scott, the incident was a turning point. His stand resonated with millions, cementing his reputation as a beacon of authenticity in an industry often criticized for its shallowness. Fans flooded his social media with messages of support, and Redemption Road became a cultural touchstone, its themes of atonement and resilience mirroring Scott's own journey. For Stephen, the road to redemption would be long. The once untouchable host faced declining viewership and whispers of a potential replacement. The lesson was clear. In a world hungry for authenticity, those who trade in cheap provocation risk losing more than just a moment. They risk losing their legacy. What did you think of this moment? Should Scott have stayed or walked? Was Stephen's behavior a one-off or a symptom of something bigger? Share your thoughts below, and let's keep the conversation going. If you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter.